this and get us weed. Put my weed pen on. Too fucked up. You can do that. You're not supposed to run with your wand, Harry. It's a good way to break it.
I don't think I'm ready for this just yet.
I don't think you're ready for anything. Go outside, ride bike. Do 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 do. I just farted.
I should come back to this another time.
I never expected people to eat the sculpture. I just thought it would be nice for them to see it. But then people just started licking it. And I was like, what are you doing? You don't know who's licked there before? Like, what are you doing? Like, nobody was afraid of that. It was weird. My name's Joseph Marr, and I'm an artist working with sugar in Berlin. I just love the look on people's faces when they understand it's sugar, because most people don't actually know. And then when they hear that it's sugar, they go, what? And then they look at it again. And I think that makes them feel more part of it, and they know what it's made of. Working with sugar is a unique thing. It's incredibly difficult. Temperature and humidity affect it greatly. Once it's made, it's quite solid and lives for a long time. The older sculptures I have are now 14 years old, and they're doing well. I like the challenge of making something that should be temporary, permanent. I never...
Alright, we have a big GPO, a giant Pacific octopus here. He's likely to come up in that box trap, which we use with crab or shrimp. See that tiny hole? The really interesting thing about cephalopods is they can condense their body down to the size of their beak. That is the only hard bone in their entire body. So as long as they can get through a hole smaller than the beak that's in the center of their head, they can make it happen. So this huge animal, probably 60, 70 pounds, is going to squish through this tiny little hole to escape. And it really speaks to not just their adaptability, but their intelligence. The fact that this octopus identified that little hole, can tell by sticking his arm down there that there's water down there. All he has to do is make his body small enough to squeeze through. And sure enough, this giant critter is going to disappear through this tiny hole in the gunnel back to the deep sea. Look at that, just like that. Insane!
Shrimp.
I never expected...
Did you do this? Told to do.
3 reasons why Call of Duty.
Fucking roach.
Unheard of. The manuscript was divided into 2 sections, the first of which was headed 1925, Dream and Dreamwork of H.A. Wilcox, 7 Thomas Street, Providence, Rhode Island. And the second, Narrative of Inspector John R. LaGrasse, 121 Bienville Street, New Orleans, Louisiana, at 1908 AAS
Hello there.
meeting.
Perhaps you can
Notes
help
on
me.
same, and Professor Webb's account. The other manuscript papers were all brief notes, some of them accounts of the queer dreams of different persons, some of them citations from theosophical books and magazines, notably W. Scott Eliot's Atlantis and the Lost Lemuria.
Lumos.
And the rest, comments on long-surviving secret societies and hidden cults, with references to passages in such mythological and anthropological source books as Fraser's Golden Bough and Miss Murray's Witch Cult in Western Europe. The cuttings largely alluded to stray mental illnesses and outbreaks of group folio mania in the spring of 1925.
I trust Mr. Brattleby was able to accommodate you and that you found success in your endeavors.
I finished all of the tasks you gave me, Professor Hackett.
Glad to hear it. Then you should be ready to learn Incendio.
Should be, Professor.
Yes. I'm sorry to say, I visited enough careless colleagues at St. Mungo's to assure you that fire is a fickle servant. Your spellcasting has impressed me thus far, but please maintain focus. I would rather we not end today's lesson with your robes aflame. Let us begin. And remember, focus on the proper wand movement. Concentrate. And keep your wand
was a
steady.
precocious youth of no genius, but great eccentricity, and had from childhood excited attention to the strange stories and odd dreams he was in the habit of relating. He called himself psychically hypersensitive, but the staid folk of the ancient commercial city dismissed him as merely queer. never mingling much with his kind. He had dropped gradually from social visibility, and was now known only to a small group of aesthetes from other towns. Even the Providence Art Club, anxious to preserve its conservatism, had found him quite hopeless. On the occasion of the visit, ran the professor's manuscript, the sculptor abruptly asked for the benefit of his host's archaeological knowledge in identifying the hieroglyphics on the bas-relief. He spoke in a dreamy, stilted manner which suggested words and alienated sympathy, and my uncle showed some sharpness in replying, for the conspicuous freshness of the tablet implied kinship with anything but archaeology. Young Wilcox's rejoinder impressed my uncle enough to make him recall and record it verbatim, was of a fantastically poetic cast which must have typified his whole conversation, and of which I have since found highly characteristic of him. He said, "It is new indeed, for I made it last night in a dream of
I might do
strange
some
cities,
IRL streaming
and
later. I
dreams
just want to
are old
relax
and
today.
Tyre, or the contemplative Sphinx, or garden-girdled Babylon." It was then that he began that rambling tale which suddenly played upon a sleeping memory and won the fevered interest of my uncle. There had been a slight earthquake tremor the night before, the most considerable felt in New England for some years, and Wilcox's imagination had been keenly affected. Upon retiring, he had had an unprecedented dream of great cyclopean cities of Titan blocks and sky-flung monoliths, all dripping with green ooze and sinister with latent horror. Hieroglyphics had covered the walls and pillars,
there
and
you
from
are.
some undetermined point below had come a voice that was not a voice, a chaotic sensation which only fancy could transmute into sound, but which he attempted to render by the
You'll be pleased
almost
to know that I work for my
unpronounceable jumble
defensive
of
magic with
letters,
Professor Hackett.
Cthulhu
So I
Fatigue.
hear. She tells me you've taken
This
rather
verbal
well to your
jumble
new
was the
wand.
key to the
You must
recollection
continue
which
to work with her
excited
and your other
disturbed
professors to improve your
Professor
skills.
Angel.
That said,
He questioned
I
the
don't wish to
sculptor with
postpone our visit to the
scientific
library any longer.
minuteness, and studied with almost
So,
frantic intensity
shall we proceed?
the bas-relief which
Fig,
the youth had found
I have
himself
work for you.
looking
Come.
troubled and clever.
Headmaster, I'm with a student and my schedule
Your
is...
schedule will wait indefinitely, as will your student.
My uncle
I would
claimed his
think
old
that after
age,
all the
of
trouble you
course,
caused me
said,
with Osric,
that
you'd be
his
eager to
slowness
make
in
amends.
recognizing both
My
hieroglyphics
office,
and
5 minutes.
real design. Many of his questions seemed highly out of place to his visitor, especially
That
those
man
which
is
tried to
exasperating.
grapple with strange
Unfortunately, our
crowds of
trip to the
societies.
restricted section will have to wait a
Wilcox could
bit
not understand
longer.
the repeated
But Professor,
promises of
We have no
silence
choice.
which he was offered
It would
in
be
exchange
unwise
for
to
an
provoke
admission of
our
lavishing
illustrious
some
headmaster further.
widespread
I shall find you when I've completed whatever toils I must endure.
When Professor Angel became convinced that the sculptor was indeed ignorant of any cult or system of cryptic lore, he besieged his visitor with
I just
demands for
farted.
future reports of dreams. This bore regular fruit, for after the first interview, the manuscript records daily calls of the young man, during which he related startling fragments of nocturnal imagery, whose burden was always some terrible
Sebastian mentioned sneaking into the
You'll
restricted
break your
section.
wand!
Perhaps he'll
with
have
a
an idea.
subterranean voice or intelligence, shouting monotonously
Shut up,
in
bitch.
enigmatical sense impacts, uninscribable save as gibberish.
Oi,
The two
you
sounds
help
most
me?
frequently repeated are
Hello
those
there.
rendered by the
Perhaps you
letters
can help me.
Cthulhu and
Oi,
Brillier.
can you help me?
On March 23rd, the manuscript continued, Wilcox failed to appear, and inquiries at his quarters revealed that he had been stricken with an obscure sort of fever and taken to the home of his family in Waterman Street. He had cried out in the night, arousing several other artists in the building.
Sebastian, there you are. I was hoping to see you. I was in the Three Broomsticks after the troll attack and saw what happened with Rookwood and Harlow. Not many students have Victor Rookwood's attention. What was that all about?
Calling often at the Thayer Street office of Dr. Toby, whom he learned to be in charge. The youth's febrile mind, apparently, was dwelling on...
Seems he's working with Ranrock, and Ranrock is after something I found at Gringotts.
As he
Ranrock?
spoke of the
And when were you at Gringotts? Professor Fig and I ended up there after the dragon attack. It's quite the tale. Fig had this portkey. A portkey? To Gringotts? I'm not sure I follow. I barely follow myself, and I was there. Anyway, we ended up in an ancient vault where we found a map. That map leads to the restricted section. You can't be serious. Deadly serious. Professor Fig has insisted that I not tell a soul about any of this. I've probably said too much.
Understood. Your secret's safe with me. Whatever it is.
Thank you, Sebastian. You mentioned being clever enough not to get caught in the restricted section.
And I am. Meet me outside the library tonight, and tell no one.
On April 2nd at about 3 p.m.
What will happen if we're caught in the restricted section?
Detention, no doubt. But a word of caution or two will help. For one, avoid Peeves, the poltergeist. Aside from wanton destruction of property, he loves nothing more than telling on the likes of us.
How concerned should I be about the librarian? Madam Scribner doesn't take kindly to clandestine activities taking place amongst her precious books. So do all that you can to avoid her.
She and I have had our entanglements, but I can hold my own against her. You may not be so lucky.
Thank you, Sebastian. I'll meet you later.
Here, the first part of the manuscript ended, but references to certain of the scattered notes gave me much material for thought. So much, in fact, that only the ingrained skepticism then forming my philosophy can account for my continued distrust of the artist. The notes in question were those descriptive of the dreams of various persons covering the same period as that in which young Wilcox had had his strange visitations. My
See there?
Seems
That's the door we need to reach. And those annoying prefects would love nothing more than to rat on us to Scribner, so don't let them see us. Understood?
I can be sneaky. Let's go.
Hold on now. There's a spell you should know. The disillusionment charm. Good for getting places you're not supposed to be. Cast it and you'll appear as little more than a trick of the light, just as long as you keep your distance and stay quiet.
You mean I'll actually be able to turn invisible?
Something like that. It's not as foolproof as a cloak, but those are expensive. And spells are free.
Give it a try.
New England's traditional salt of the earth gave an almost completely negative result. Those scattered cases of uneasy but formless nocturnal impressions appear here and there, always between March 23rd and April 2nd, the period of young Wilcox's delirium. Scientific men were little more affected, though 4 cases of vague description suggest fugitive glimpses of strange landscapes, and in one case there is mention of dread of something. It was from the artists and poets that the pertinent answers came, and I know that panic would have broken loose had they been able to compare notes. As it was, lacking their original letters, I half suspected the compiler of having asked leading questions, or of having edited the correspondence in corroboration of what he had latently resolved to see. That is why I continue to feel that Wilcox, somehow cognizant of the old data which my uncle had possessed, had been imposing on the veteran scientist. These responses from Eastleeds told a disturbing tale. From February 28th to April 2nd, a large proportion of them had dreamed very bizarre things. The intensity of the dreams being
told me the librarian would be gone by now.
During the period of the
I said usually, but it'll still be alright. Do you see her desk behind me?
The key is in the drawer of that desk. Now, here's what we're going to do. I'll create a distraction to draw her away. You focus on getting the key. I'll meet you outside of the restricted section.
One case, which the note
you distract, I get the key. Understood.
I said I'd get you in, and I always keep my word.
A widely known architect with leanings toward theosophy and occultism went violently insane on the date of young Wilcox's seizure, and expired several months later after incessant screamings to be saved from some escaped denizen of hell. Had my uncle referred to these cases by name instead of merely by number,
Is someone there?
I should have attempted some
that you,
corroboration and personal investigation. But as it was, I succeeded in tracing down only a few. All of these, however, bore out the notes in full. I have often wondered if all the objects of the professor's questioning felt as puzzled as did this fraction. It is well that no explanation shall ever reach them. The press cuttings, as I have intimated, touched on cases of panic, mania,
That wasn't
and
so difficult
eccentricity
after all.
during the given period.
How to find that
Professor
book.
Angel must have employed a cutting bureau, for the number of extracts was tremendous, and the sources scattered throughout the globe. Here was a nocturnal suicide in London, where a lone sleeper had leaped from a window after a shocking cry. Here likewise a rambling letter to the editor of a paper in South America, where a fanatic deduces a dire future from visions he has seen. A dispatch from California describes a theosophist colony as donning white robes en masse for some glorious fulfillment which never arrives, whilst items from India speak guardedly of serious native unrest toward the end of March. Voodoo orgies multiply in Haiti, and African outposts report ominous mutterings. American officers in the Philippines find certain tribes bothersome about this time, and New York policemen are mobbed by hysterical Levantines on the night of March 22nd and 23rd. The west of Ireland, too, is full of wild rumor and legendary, and a fantastic painter named Ardois Bonneau hangs a blasphemous dream landscape in the Paris Spring Salon of 1926. And so numerous are the recorded troubles in insane asylums that only a miracle can have stopped the medical fraternity from noting strange parallelisms and drawing mystified conclusions. A weird bunch of cuttings, all told, and I can at this stage scarcely envisage the callous rationalism with which I set them aside. But I was then convinced that young Wilcox had known of the older matters mentioned by the professor.
Need inspiration? Shop Kroger for thousands of appetizing ingredients that inspire countless mouth-watering meals with savings beyond low prices.
No need for
like
us to
digital
be skulking
coupons
about.
worth over $600 each week and up to
So
$1
what is it
off
you've
per
been
gallon
looking
at the
for?
pump. So you can get
I'm
big
looking for a
flavors,
cure to
big
help my twin
savings.
sister,
Kroger,
Anne,
fresh for
so that she can
everyone.
return to
Fuel restrictions
Hogwarts.
apply.
We've
Because
locked
Merlin
in low
knows
prices to
everyone
help you
else is
save
giving.
big store-wide.
Why do you
Look for
think
the
we find a
locked-in low
cure in the
prices
restricted
tags and
section?
enjoy extra
Does the
savings throughout
Hogwarts
store.
matron have nothing that can help Anne?
Fresh for
No,
everyone.
we've tried everyone from Nurse Blaney to St. Mungo's. But I can research on my own. No need to concern yourself with that right now. Let's focus on what
The older
you're
matters which had made the
Which is what,
sculptor's dream
precisely?
and bas-relief so
I'll know it when I see
significant
it.
to my uncle
You're being
formed the
awfully
subject
cryptic.
of the second half of his long manuscript. Once before it appears, Professor Angel had seen the hellish outlines of the nameless monstrosity, puzzled over the unknown hieroglyphics, and heard the ominous syllables which can be rendered only as Cthulhu, and all this in so stirring and audible a connection that it is small wonder he pursued young Wilcox with queries and demands for data. The earlier experience had come in 1908, 17 years before, when the American Archaeological Society held its annual meeting in St. Louis. Professor Angel, as befitted one of his authority and attainments, had had a prominent part in all the deliberations, and was one of the first to be approached by the several outsiders who took advantage of the convocation to offer questions for correct answering, problems for expert solution. The chief of these outsiders, and in a short time the focus of interest for the entire meeting, was a commonplace-looking, middle-aged man who had traveled all the way from New Orleans for certain special information unobtainable from
How do
any
I know
local
you won't go
source.
to the librarian and
His
blame
name
this all
was
on me?
John
Why would I do
Raymond
that?
Legrasse,
I
and he
like
was
having
by
friends who
profession
are in my
an
debt.
inspector of police,
Now go. Good luck in your search.
He bore the subject of his visit.
Now, where's that damned poltergeist got to?
Apparently very ancient stone statuette.
I know just the spell to repair this armor.
At a loss to determine. It must not be fancied that Inspector Legrasse had the least interest in archaeology. On the contrary, his wish for enlightenment was prompted by purely professional considerations. The statuette, idol, fetish, whatever it was, had been captured some months before in the wooded swamps south of New Orleans during a raid on a supposed voodoo meeting. And so singular and hideous were the rites connected with it that the police could not but realize that they had been stumbled on a dark cult totally unknown to them, and infinitely more diabolic than even the blackest of the African voodoo circles. Of its origin, apart from the erratic and unbelievable tales extorted from the captured members, absolutely nothing was to be discovered. Hence the anxiety of the police for any antiquarian lore which might help them to place the frightful symbol, and through it track down the cult to its fountainhead. Inspector Legrasse was scarcely prepared for the sensation which his offering created. One sight of the thing had been enough to throw the assembled men of science into a state of tense excitement, and they lost no time in crowding around him to gaze at the diminutive figure, whose utter strangeness and air of genuinely abysmal antiquity hinted so potently at unopened and archaic vistas. No recognized form of sculpture animated this terrible object, yet centuries and even thousands of years seemed recorded in its dim and greenish surface of unplaceable stone. The figure, which was finally passed slowly from man to man for close and careful study, was between 7 and 8 inches in height, and of exquisitely artistic workmanship. It represented a monster of a vaguely anthropoid outline, but with an octopus-like head, whose face was a mass of feelers, a scaly, rubbery-looking body, prodigious claws on hind and forefeet, and long, narrow wings behind. This thing, which seemed instinct with a fearsome and unnatural malignancy, was of a somewhat bloated corpulence, and squatted evilly on a rectangular block or pedestal covered with undecipherable characters. The tips of the wings touched the back edge of the block. The seat occupied the center, whilst the long, curved claws of the doubled-up, crouching hind legs gripped the front edge and extended a quarter of the way down towards the bottom of the pedestal. The cephalopod head was bent forward, so that the ends of the facial feelers brushed the backs of huge forepaws, which clasped the croucher's elevated knees. The aspect of the whole was abnormally large, and the more subtly fearful because its source was so totally unknown. Its vast, awesome, and incalculable age was unmistakable. Yet not one link did it show with any known type of art belonging to civilization's youth, or indeed to any other time. Totally separate and apart, its very material was a mystery. For the soapy, greenish-black stone with its golden or iridescent flecks and striations resembled nothing familiar to geology or mineralogy.
Incendio!
Characters along the base were equally baffling, and no member present, despite a representation of half the world's expert learning could form the least notion of even their remotest linguistic connection. They, like the subject and material, belong to something oddly remote and distinct from mankind as we know it. Something frightfully suggestive of old and unhallowed cycles of life in which our world and our conceptions have no part. And yet, as the members severally shook their heads and confessed defeat at the inspector's problem, there was one man in that gathering who suspected a touch of bizarre familiarity with the monstrous shape and who presently told with some diffidence of the odd trifle he knew. This person was the late William Channing Webb, professor of anthropology in Princeton University, and an explorer of no slight note. Professor Webb had been engaged 48 years before in a tour of Greenland and Iceland in search of some runic inscriptions which he failed to unearth. And whilst high up on the West Greenland coast, had encountered a singular tribe or cult of degenerate Eskimo, whose religion, a curious form of devil worship, chilled him with its deliberate bloodthirstiness
this must be the way forward,
and
but to
repulsiveness.
where?
It was a faith of which other Eskimo knew little, and which they mentioned only with shadows, saying that it had come down from horribly ancient eons before ever was found. Besides nameless rites and human sacrifices, there were certain queer hereditary rituals addressed to a supreme elder devil or Twanasuk. And of this, Professor Webb had taken a careful phonetic copy from an aged wizard expressing the sounds in Roman letters as best he knew how. But just now, of prime significance was the fetish which this monk had cherished, and around which they danced when the aurora leaped high over the ice cliffs. It was, the professor stated, a very crude vestment of stone, comprising a hideous picture and some cryptic writing. And so far as he could tell, it was a rough parallel in all essential features of the bestial thing now lying before the This data, received with suspense and astonishment by the assembled members, proved doubly exciting to Inspector Legras, and he began at once to
I felt the road crawling my pants.
Having noted and copied an oral ritual among the swamp god worshippers as beneficiaries, he besought the professor to remember as best he might the syllables taken down once with the herbalist Eskimo.
Incendio!
And then followed an exhaustive comparison of details, and a moment of really silence, when both detective and scientist agreed on the virtual identity of the phrase common to two hellish rituals so many worlds of distance apart. What, in substance, both the Eskimo wizards and the Louisiana swamp priests had chanted to their kindred idols was something very like this. The word divisions being guessed at from traditional breaks in the phrase as chanted aloud. Funglui Magloor Nath, Cthulhu Rilya, Wagar Nagel Fatagan. Legras had one point in advance of Professor Webb, for several among his mongrel prisoners had repeated to him what older celebrants had told them the words meant. This text, as given, ran something like this. In his house at Rillier, dead Cthulhu waits dreaming. And now, in response to a general and urgent demand, Inspector Legras related as fully as possible his experience with the swamp worshippers, telling a story to which I could see my uncle attached profound significance. It savored of the wildest dreams of a mythmaker and theosophist, and disclosed an astonishing degree of cosmic imagination among such half-castes and pariahs as might be least expected to possess it. On November 1st, 1907, there had come to the Newgate police a frantic summons from the swamp and lagoon country to the south. The squatters there, mostly primitive but good-natured descendants of Lafitte's men, were in the grip of stark terror from an unknown thing which had stolen upon them in the night. It was voodoo apparently, but some of them had shortly disappeared since the malevolent tom-tom had begun its incessant beating far within the black haunted woods where no dweller ventured. There were insane shouts and harrowing screams, soul-chilling chants and dancing devil flames. And the frightened messenger added, the people could stand it no more. So a body of 20 police,
goddamn roach,
carriages and an automobile, had set out in the late afternoon with the shivering squatter as a guide. At the end of the passable road they alighted, and for miles splashed on in silence through the terrible cypress woods where day never came.
You wanted to see me?
Ugly
I had
roots,
Mistress Fitzgerald.
malignant
Professor
hanging
Rackham.
nooses of Spanish
Miss Isadora
moss
Morganach.
and Welcome.
Professor Rookwood, Professor Bacall.
We understand that you are adjusting well to life at Hogwarts.
I am.
I am glad, especially in light of your unusual situation, starting as a 5th year.
As it happens, I was also admitted to Hogwarts as a 5th year.
Hi there.
I've never heard of another like us.
I'm a missionary for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
When we spoke
This
yesterday
is the Book
after
of Mormon.
class, you
It
asked
specifically talks about Jesus Christ.
beautiful
I've seen
swirls
the
you
Book of
saw
Mormon be able
years
to
ago
change my
when you
life so
visited
much.
Johanna.
I recognized you all immediately.
As you can see, we have lots of
Thank
cards.
you enough
So
for
click
what
the
you
link
did.
below and missionaries will
We were
drop
glad
off
to
your
help.
house and share a quick
And
little
yes,
message
I
about
did
Jesus
see swirls
Christ.
of magic
Thank you.
everywhere that day. My father insists it was my imagination running wild, but it was certainly...
It was not your imagination.
First of all, Professor Rackham can see them too, but we've never known of another who could.
Whether you want puzzles, something chill,
or something super intense,
The whispers and traces that appear when a particular form of ancient magic is wielded.
Ancient magic?
Few are capable of wielding it. Hogwarts itself is a stronghold of ancient magic.
So if I can see traces of ancient magic, does that mean I can wield it too?
With the proper training.
But let us not get ahead of ourselves, Miss Morgan.
Before I can train you to wield such magic, you must first master all that Hogwarts has to offer.
What many people don't know is his strong affection for
This powerful
as a young man.
great harm
Rowling
to
said
our
to the
hands.
public in
It
2007
must be
that
wielded by
Dumbledore is
select
gay,
few.
and that his feelings for Grindelwald were of more than just friendship. When a
That
fan
you
said
not
in a
speak
tweet
to
that they
anyone
couldn't
about
see
what we've
Dumbledore being
discussed here
gay,
today.
Rowling responded saying, maybe because gay people just look like people. In this video, I'm going to tell you the entire story and relationship of Dumbledore, the Muggleborn's greatest champion, and Grindelwald, the second most powerful wizarding tyrant next to Voldemort himself. Let's start with Dumbledore. He lived with his parents Kendra and Percival, along with his younger brother Aberforth and his younger sister Ariana. Ariana was the youngest, and at the age of 6, she was doing magic in the backyard. 3 Muggle boys saw her doing this, and they approached her. When she couldn't show them the trick, the boys got carried away and attacked her. The incident scarred her for the rest of her life, and Aberforth described the incident as this. It destroyed her what they did. She was never right again. She wouldn't use magic, but she couldn't get rid of it. It turned inwards and drove her mad. It exploded out of her, and she couldn't control it. Now that we have Fantastic Beasts, they introduced us to the Obscurus. It is likely that this is what Ariana was, an Obscurial.
Before wizards went underground,
Sneaking in the restricted section again! I had thought we were through with this mischief. Clearly detentions are insufficient.
So instead of learning to harness it,
I'm afraid I must take this to the headmaster.
Are they
But that being
sub-tier?
said, Peeves informs me that you didn't come alone tonight. If someone has coerced you, I would have you tell me. You're a bright boy. Don't waste this.
Due to the trauma of being attacked. Anyway, Dumbledore's
There was nobody else. I came alone.
boys that did this to his daughter.
Oh, Sebastian. What will your uncle say?
The ministry locked him up in Azkaban for the rest of his life, and he never explained why he attacked them, because he knew if the ministry had known where Ariana was, she would have been locked up in the Wizarding Hospital for good, because she was a threat to the International Statute of Secrecy. Because Ariana was so unstable now, they had to keep her safe and quiet, and the family from then on would tell everyone that Ariana was ill. Her mother Kendra would spend the rest of her life trying to keep Ariana calm and happy in their house, so she wouldn't have any more exploding outbursts or Obscurus incidents. Unfortunately, when Ariana was 14, she had one of her rages. Kendra was killed in a tragic accident. Albus, the oldest of the 3, was 18 at the time, and was fresh out of Hogwarts with what looked like a great future ahead of him, with too many accomplishments to count, including awards and honors. He was about to take a grand tour with his friend Alpheus Doge, his dim-witted but devoted sidekick he had picked up at Hogwarts. The two were at the Leaky Cauldron, preparing to head to Greece the following morning, when he got news that his mother was dead. Dumbledore had to return to Godric's Hollow to care for Aberforth and Ariana. As Doge went on to the adventures that Dumbledore was supposed to accompany him on, leaving Albus behind. Dumbledore was not happy, and later he stated to Harry, I resented it, Harry. I was gifted. I was brilliant. I wanted to escape. I wanted to shine. I wanted glory. He said he loved his family, but he was selfish. He returned to his village in anger and bitterness. He felt trapped and wasted. However, his view on being home completely changed when his neighbor Matilda Bagshot's nephew, Gellert Grindelwald, came to visit her. He went to Durmstrang, a wizarding school known for their tolerance for the dark arts. He was just as brilliant as Dumbledore, but rather than doing what Dumbledore did, to go after awards, he pursued other things. At the age of 16, he was expelled from Durmstrang for his twisted experiments and near-fatal attacks on students. He traveled abroad for some months after he was expelled, until he decided to visit his great-aunt in Godric's Hollow. Matilda recommended that Albus and Gellert meet each other, and they hit it off immediately. Matilda said the boys took to each other at once. They got on like a cauldron on fire. The two boys would spend all day together, and even after spending all that time together...
When I was 20, me and my girlfriend broke up. I was with her for 4 years. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't, and this is before social media. You couldn't just chase her. Like, that was it. She's gone now. She moved. I didn't know where she lived. That was it. And I couldn't sleep. Now, it wasn't like I was crying my eyes out, but I was just, where's my mom? I couldn't sleep.
Need something else to do.
So I thought, gym at 6 a.m., gym at 3 p.m., gym at 8. I had nothing else to do but fight. So I took all that trauma, all that heartbreak, and I molded it into becoming a world-level combatant, right? So there's nothing. What did we talk earlier about how trauma can mold you? Trauma can be a fantastic thing. Heartbreak, depression, sadness, these are all...
Listen, don't fall for those $6,400 subsidies. Those ads promising you the subsidies now.
How do you think parents can build more confidence in, like, deciding their life instead of just letting me decide it for them?
Yeah, so they have to take absolute responsibility, which is the first thing. The second thing, they have to get competence and competence.
Throat scared the living shit out of me.
Like some kind soul help me. If only a new student were to help me with my sad predicament.
Are you alright?
Don't you know who I am? Zenobia Noak, the girl whom everyone at school hates for no reason.
I'm sorry the other students weren't more friendly.
That's kind of you. I suppose there are a few decent souls here. I wanted to make some new friends, and so I brought my collection down to the common room. My gobstone collection, that is. I was hoping someone would want to play. Are you familiar with gobstones? Little balls, like marbles. Grand game. And if you lose, they spray you with a foul-smelling liquid.
Gobstones? Sounds like a fun challenge.
That's what I tried to tell everyone. People can be so cruel. Just because they're sprayed all over with smelly gobstone spit, it's their own fault for losing. Imelda is one of the worst losers. Everett and Astoria are terrible as well. And now those poor losers have taken my gobstones and hidden them in very high places all over the school.
No, I'm not.
Rather an overreaction on their part.
I'll say. Anyway, I can't work out how to get them back on my own. I don't think I know the necessary spells yet. I need someone, perhaps a selfless and talented 5th year to help me.
Haven't you any friends at school?
Not really. Natty said hello once, but not a word since.
Do you have any suggestions on how to get your gobstones down from their hiding spots?
If I knew that, I'd get them myself. Whoever hid my gobstones that high got up there somehow.
I'll see what I can do.
I'd appreciate the help. If you do find all of my gobstones, do come and see me again. I'll be back to playing Snake Pit and Jackstone by myself in no time.
I'd better keep an eye on high places around the school for Zenobia's gobstones.
It's going to allow you to have confidence. You're not going to be good at shit if you're bad at shit. You have to be good at things. You're only going to be confident at things if you're good at things. I know what I'm good at and what I'm bad at. So you have to go out there and take risks, and you have to make mistakes, and you have to risk it all. And once again, this comes down to competition. I think competition is such an important thing in the masculine world.
I'd better keep an eye on high places around the school for Zenobia's gobstones.
Competition driven. You can't make excuses. If I sit here and say I lost a fight, cool. lost the fight. But I lost the fight, but my gloves, when they were wrapped up, my hand was hurting, and then the excuses. Bro, you lost. Like, no one gives a fuck. Like, you have to understand that excuses don't matter. Nobody cares. Life's binary. Winners and losers. And you just have to take absolute responsibility for all of that. I was walking to school, to college, with a couple of my friends, and a Ferrari drove past. And I said, bro, you see that? And he goes, yeah, what about it? And I said, doesn't that piss you off? I must have about 16. He goes, why? So this dude has 400 G's for a car, 400 grand. I'm walking 4 miles to college and my mom hasn't got any car. He has 400 grand. Do you think he works a job? Do you think he's fucking behind a counter somewhere? He knows something about the world that I don't know.
Well, that's one of Zenobia's gobstones. I hardly see what all the fuss is about.
I was intrigued and it angered me. I couldn't sleep for weeks. I was pissed off. Every time I saw somebody with genuine money, I understood that everything I was being told and taught they were trying to make me believe just simply wasn't true. It's like, this is bullshit. None of these people are getting these things by following the path the system is trying to make me follow. Nobody, and everybody intrinsically knows this. If you're at BP, you're at a petrol station, and I pull up in my Lamborghini, nobody goes, wow, he went to school. You studied hard. It's over 10% into the year now. I wonder if anyone who made a New Year's resolution says it's over 10% into the year. Am I at 10% of my goal? Because your stupid ass said you were going to be a millionaire when you were drunk on New Year's Eve. Well, you need to have 100 grand saved. Do you have 100,000? Have you even done the feedback on your own goal you made 30 short days ago to realize that you're nowhere near it and you're not going to make it and you're a loser? No. Oh, I got the rest of the year.
4 years ago, on June 21st, 2020, I chose to get sober. And because of that, I could repair my relationship with my parents, save money so I can move to a new city, get a handle on my anxiety, and build
Okay, the only one.
Well done besting Sebastian at dueling.
I'd better keep an eye on high places around the school for Zenobia's gobstones. Protego! Accio! Revelio. I'd better keep an eye on high places around the school for Zenobia's gobstones.
No.
Accio! Revelio.
I practiced doing a loop-de-loop on my brain all summer.
Accio! Levioso! I'd better keep an eye on high places around the school for Zenobia's gobstones.
I saw you fight that troll in the village. You were incredible.
I'd better keep an eye on high places around the school for Zenobia's gobstones. Revelio. Accio. Revelio. Revelio. Accio.
See here. I better go check the mail.
So like it. Here's a little story and you're sure to like it. Swift and sly and I'm playing it cool with my homegirl. Full of
I'd better keep an eye on high places around the school for Zenobia's gobstones.
Can I polish those chips off? Angry high barbecue, but potato chips rock ass, man. Yeah, like rock and kick ass.
Accio!
Go play something else.